If you have been following this telecast, in the last two editions, we dwelt extensively on cybersecurity with huge focus on defensive and offensive security. And luckily on the show, we had a cybersecurity solution architect and expert who has spent years, I can say over 2 decades, on cybersecurity. And at the mention of Yusuf on security, you know who I'm talking about. Now, if you're just joining us, this is Money and Technology reaching you from CBA TV. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani, your regular anchor. Today on the program, we're going to, dive inward into most of the things that we must take notes. It is an extension of what we've been discussing, most of the things that we must pay attention to when we are referring to cybersecurity. Of course, this time around, it's a different topic entirely. And today again, we still have Yusuf Ibrahim, who is going to be doing justice to our concerns today. Now, you must have heard about virus. Virus is nothing new again in the world of technology. In fact, it's one of the major challenges the world technology is facing. Now, interchangeably, we get to hear malware, virus. Sometimes we confuse the both together. Well, I'm a novice. We have an expert in the building who is going to be taking us into a ride into the journey of technology. Yusuf Ibrahim, how are you today? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine, Shara. Thank you very much for having me again.
All right, thank you very much. It really is a pleasure to have you again on the show this moment. Now, I'm a little bit confused, and I'm sure most of my viewers out there are also kind of confusing these two major words. When we mention virus and malware, what's the difference between these two words? Are they the same?
Yeah, the difference between those two words, virus and malware, let me just define each word in turn. First, the word virus is essentially the same way that we understand virus from a biological term that affects biological beings such as us. So that's a virus, and it's the same way it affects, although being a software, it affects machines that we actually use, computers. And the malware is a combination of two words that has been added together, malicious software. So each word has been shortened, and then the two words have actually been concatenated to form a new word, which is malware. And malware is a catchphrase for a large family of different sort of viruses or trojans or worms, as we will actually discuss in a minute. So those are the definitions of the two words. If you look at the difference between virus and malware, a virus is, as I said, is a subset of a of the umbrella family of malware. And if you really go academically, what virus is, it's a piece of malware, it's a piece of software, although malicious, that is infecting your machine, whether that was actually done accidentally by you or by someone else who's using your machine, or it's been targeted to you so that it affects your machine for nefarious purposes, and that can be any type of purposes. Maybe they want to steal documents, maybe they want to damage the machine, etc. Who knows? So that's what virus is essentially, and malware essentially is the broad term of different kind of malicious software. Now, those software are created for purpose, either for research, whether that is intentional or otherwise. It got released and then it impacts machines. So those are the two words, virus and malware, and that is the difference between the two.
All right, thank you very much, Yusuf, for that clarification. I'm sure my viewers have understood perfectly the difference between virus and malware. Now, having demystified these two words, I get to hear Trojan. Most times when I hear Trojan, I think of a horse, running. You know what I'm saying? So what exactly is Trojan in the world of threats, or should I say cybersecurity? What's Trojan?
Yeah, so if we move away now from that type of malware and virus and worms and go to another buzzword, as you've absolutely brought up, which is actually a fantastic questions. And here we're really just sort of demystifying those, jargons and buzzwords that we normally associate with cybersecurity. So that one, Trojan, and Trojan has a bit of a history to it before the cybersecurity adopted, and Trojan comes from the mythology of the Greeks, in the old days, where the city of Troy, when it was sieged, and they cannot penetrate the perimeter defenses of the city Troy, which was the ancient Greeks. What the attackers did is they built a gift in the form of a large wooden horse to give it to the occupants and to the rulers of the city, and the intention was not to be a gift, but intentions was to actually bypass the perimeter defense without much of a struggle. So imagine a massive wooden horse being hauled into the gates of the citadel of the city, where the guards open up because it's a gift they cannot refuse. But unfortunately, what was filled inside this large wooden horse was soldiers, and the intention was to go and penetrate the perimeter defenses of the city so that they can come out in the middle of the night, which they did, and then open the gates for the other troops, for the other inventories and the arch and people with horsebacks to come in and then obviously devastate the city. So Trojan came from that history, that mythology, Greek history, where it was actually a sort of an intended trickery to bypass the defenses. So the association with this word Trojan is trickery, where the intention of this piece of code is not exactly what it pretends to be. So when it comes into your environment, it comes in as a pretext, is cloaked with an intention that is not exactly the real intention of what you're going to be using it for, but it's here to invade, it's here to take over, it's here to do something not good to your machine. So a Trojan normally is, the word Trojan is always combined with the word horse, Trojan horse, so that it relates to that old Greek mythology trickery that has actually been carried out in the past. So a Trojan horse is a piece of software that you download. Maybe you're looking for some piece of software, I don't know, maybe you want to generate some sort of a animation, and you're looking for something that is open source or free, but unfortunately the danger is nothing is free on in the internet, so you've got to be super careful when you're downloading something that is supposed to be free.
All right, thank you so very much. Now, another word again that is a little bit puzzling: ransomware. We get to hear ransomware attack on a daily basis. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, that's actually a very hot topic, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So the other piece of malware, again, to add on to the other three malware that we've talked about, is exactly that, ransomware. And what is it? Well, let's decompose the word again. Ransom, we know what ransom is when someone exactly wants something from you, and unless you pay, they will not give you back whatever they took from you. you. So you take something from someone and you say, pay this amount of money or that amount of money, or I will destroy. I'm not going to return your belongings, your property. So a ransom essentially is exchanged for you to obtain something back, whether that is a property, monetary term, whatever. It's basically something that allows you to gain something that you had access to. So that's a ransom. The ware comes from software. So it's a piece of software that is takes something from you, and then demands you to do something, a favor to the person or people who took those things, those belongings, those properties from you. Right, so that's a ransomware. So it's a piece of, again, malware that infects your machine or machines. And by the way, it's the most popular attack that we do see recently. And really, it has just skyrocketed in the May month and also April. So those two alone, in particular May, we have seen an extreme amount of ransomware attacks in the industry. So let's step forward and go a little bit deeper. Now, this has now malware infection has now turned business. And what it really does is there are bad guys, bad actors, people who wants to make business out of the misery of people and company and corporation, to earn a living, to make business out of it. So the ransomware relies what is called encryption, and that probably is something that we're going to be talking about. It's a way to lock something, a file or a machine or a drive or a USB stick, and not allow anyone to access unless that person or those people have legitimate access mechanism that is being given to them. So, for example, when you lock your device, your smartphone, most of you should have, or at least have, I would imagine, a passphrase or a PIN or a long digit or alphanumeric. And unless you key those in, no one else is able to access that device or unlock your smartphone. It's the same kind of mentality where an attack, when it's successful on a machine, is locked in a way that no one else is able to unlock the machine unless who locked it, the person, the bad actor in this case, allows that the owner of that device or those devices to unlock. And normally they say, pay us money and this amount of money, and then we will return the key for you to unlock your machine. So what they normally do is they will go and attack organizations. There are different methods of attack they follow. So some of the attacks are targeted. So that means they're looking after you and they know you very well, and they have invested time and effort to understand you and your business, and they know exactly what is called a return of investment. They know the amount of effort and energy they put in, what they get out of. So targeted attack is measured very, very devastating when it succeeds, and very hard to combat unless you have advanced mechanism to really prevent that. So that's one of them. The other one is what is called a sort of a opportunistic, the same way that if you leave your belongings willy-nilly on the road or on top of your car, and you don't lock your car, and someone walks in and sees it sitting on the passenger seat, and they break the window and they take it. That's kind of opportunistic theft. It follows the same approach, where they send multiple attack mechanism, and this normally relies on, they infect websites, they send emails through what is called a phishing, and there are different types of phishing which we'll probably go through those, and then unfortunately someone or some people, small or large, depending on the net that they cast, and fall victim for those, and then they recoup and force people to pay money. There are mechanisms for them to obtain money, and you're probably asking yourself, well, why doesn't the the legal organizations and the authority cannot go after them. It's a little bit more complicated to go deep down on this episode, but I'm sure that we will actually dissect and build more explanation on top of this foundational discussion that we are having today.
Now, Yusuf, listen. Now, there's when we mention virus is something that is a little bit difficult to understand if not for your own explanation. Now, does this virus, because the world is being ravaged by coronavirus pandemic, we call it virus. Now, is there any difference between that virus that affects companies, or what should individual do, or it doesn't have anything to do with an individual?
Oh yeah, I mean that's actually a critical point. Just it really just goes well with the previous question. These infections that we are talking about, whether those different malware that we've talked about, or specifically the ransomware, they affect everyone. They really affect everyone. And normally the malware writers are not always looking after big organization. They will put their hands on anything that they can make money out of. So in the beginning of ransomware, for example, they started with infecting machines of individuals, family homes and people like yourself and myself with our personal computers. And that's how they used to make money out of. It might not have been large amount of money. They used to charge, $200, $300, but obviously that has now escalated to the millions for large organizations. And you can only read online the amount of outstanding amount of money the organizations are forced to pay to recover their data. Have a look at my blog, yusufonsecurity.com. And just browse through there so that you can actually see the different headings and topics that I have actually talked about as we actually went through the year so far. And we've actually been half of the year so far, and ransomware has been really a headache. So yes, it affects individuals, and you got to be careful, as I said earlier, but also organizations are the ones that are at the crosshair really, because that's where the money is. They make tons of money out of the misery and the oversight of IT security teams of organizations. And make no mistakes, nothing is out of reach by these gangs, because they will attack governments, they will attack healthcare, they will attack the financial institutions, of course, they will attack industrial engineering and organization and manufacturing, but also they will attack institution education. So it really goes to say that there is nothing off limit of where they would go, because the ultimate goal and the motives is essentially to generate money. So wherever they actually turn their focus on and they think they can make money out of, and they force money out of, they will hit with this type of malware. So yes, organizations are more affected more than the individuals, but of course the individuals can also be collateral damage, right? So if you have infection at your corporate environment, and unfortunately you take files or USB stick, which you shouldn't, because that's not really a good hygiene, to your home PC or machines, you tend to obviously then stand an infection propagating from corporate environment to your personal life. So you got to be absolutely careful, either ways, I would say.
Okay, so how can companies, individuals, business owners out there protect themselves from ransomware, viruses, Trojans, and the rest of those threats? How can they go about protecting themselves?
Yeah, so that's actually good. How can these organizations, and also we can say individuals, essentially protect themselves? Well, let's start with the individuals, because we all use PCs at home and smartphones, etc. The best way to do really is to make sure your machines are up to date as much as possible. So there's no point of actually installing third-party applications, anti-malware, etc., if you are not keeping the PC, the software, the operating system current. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Whenever there is a patch, you need to install. So patch early, as we say, patch often. The other things to do at home is to make sure that you have at least the baseline of a good hygiene in terms of using the internet and bringing software to your machine. So as I said earlier on the previous episode, make sure that you don't really download something that you're not gone out to download. Don't click on something that you're not looking for. And if something offers you something to install, don't. So those are the 3 golden rules that I would normally say to protect yourself from any type of ransomware, whether that is a worm, virus, ransomware, as I said, or Trojan, any type of malware. So those really will be good education for the individual. But also make sure that you install the antivirus. There are antiviruses that are free by corporate organizations that we work for, that they give for free. So look for those as well. And be able to download. For example, the organization that I am a consultant at, Cisco Systems, offer, of course, anti-malware that is free of charge that you can download and you can actually install on your PCs at home. Without using it in a corporate environment. So that will be really the 3 building blocks that I will advise people to do. Now, as for the organizations, of course, they need to have a budget, they need to have the knowledge, and they need to have the teams that are mobilized and trained to cope with IT-related cybersecurity incidents. That's a whole ocean that we can dive into, I'm sure, in upcoming episodes. But really, it just goes to say organizations should set a minimum bar of what is called a business continuity, and we touched this on a previous episode, to make sure that the business that you are conducting is able to succeed and to be carried out should the inevitable happen. So you need to have the mechanism to be able to continue your business if you have a hiccup, and that normally demands people who know what they're talking about in terms of business continuity planning. What is the critical assets and the value associated if this becomes unreachable and untenable? So they need to be very careful due diligence and not just really rely on just small piece of code that is doing anti-malware. Of course, then the next thing is, of course, they need to have visibility of their environment. What you cannot see, you cannot protect. You need to have that visibility to make sure what is accounted, what is the sanctioned IT environment that you are running business on, so that you absolutely know if you miss something, you know what is missing. Without that, you're absolutely just shooting in the dark. So that would be one thing. The other thing that you should be doing, of course, is to make sure that you have a centralized mechanism to provide that visibility and to provide the mechanism to prevent any type of malware. So again, patching is one of them, so that you have a software distribution mechanism to maintain your applications, to maintain your operating system patch level, and to absolutely make sure that you actually have the latest installed software that is running on the machine, whether that is a native to the operating system or whether that is a third-party application that you actually relying on as part of your business continuity. So that's one thing. The other thing, of course, is to always be vetting the software and the mechanism controls, the control mechanism that you are using. So never be complacent. You need to obviously every 6 months, 8 months, a year and a half to really kick the tires and make sure things can stand up solid on the floor and should not collapse. And that will be conducting testing and doing health check to make sure all the applications and software and things like that business relies on are absolutely accounted for and up to date and be looked after. So that will be one thing. The other thing, of course, is to have the cybersecurity hygiene, and that demands applications, software that allows you to run business in a hygienic way, the same way that we normally rely on to run applications on various parts of the business, and of course absolutely trained your individual that you're relying on to conduct your business, and whether that is the developers or developing that is a sound, secure software, or whether that is people who are managing the IT, whether it's the help desk or servers or data centers. Those should also have acute knowledge on cybersecurity hygiene. And normally you should be able to go out of your way and bring people who can actually sort of make these teams up to date, because we just get on with the grind of our job day in and day out, and then lose sight of the evolution of the cybersecurity domain. So it's a good mechanism, and it's a good habit to bring external teams to really regurgitate that things that you need to be reminded of time in and time out, but also bring more fresh knowledge that the team might have missed in the last 8 months or 1 year, so that you can actually apply that again on the organization. And then the other thing is more advanced, but also make sure that you really probe your organization from outside in, as we actually alluded to the previous episode.
All right, thank you, Yusuf, for that justification on the subject matter. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, well, that was a good talk, and thanks again. And I'm sure we'll see each other again on the next episode.
My esteemed viewers, for being part of the show from the beginning till now. Until next time, we'll come your way, hopefully and certainly. We hope to bring Yusuf Ibrahim again for yet another fantastic edition of Morning and Technology. Until another time, I remain your humble host, Ajara Ahmed Tijani. Remain blessed and enjoy digital life.